everyone. Sorry, I was trying to see if we're live or not. Hey, everyone. My name is McCall Dempsey, and I am the director and founder of Southern Smash, and I'm excited to have this conversation today all about navigating Lent in our diet-obsessed world. So I'm going to have, let's see, Emily Murray. Let's see if we can get her to connect. Are you there? It's always, there she is. Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Yeah. I was super excited.
Yeah. So, Emily, before we jump in, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So my name is Emily. I am a registered dietitian and certified eating disorder specialist. I have a private practice in Nashville, just outside of Nashville. And I also have a lived experience with an eating disorder. And so I'm really, really excited to be here and to talk about this topic. You know, I've grown up in the church and have experiences that relate to this as well as my clients do. And so, yeah, I'm just really, really excited to be here and to talk about this. It's important.
Yeah, so I am excited as well. Talking about Lent and how it's the 40 days where we give something up or do something extra for that reflection before Easter. You know, for myself, I grew up in the Catholic Church. I went to an all-girls Catholic high school, and I know for me, it showed up as diet culture, like blatantly. And it's something that, growing up, it was always, especially in high school, it was okay for Lent. I'm going to give up this food and that food, and because it's for Lent. And I'm like, and also for spring break crash dieting and the beach body and just so much diet culture, infused in that. What has been your experience with it?
Yeah. I think I would agree. So, particularly for Lynn, I feel like I haven't had, as much of an experience in that regard personally. I think at the beginning of the year, particularly in, Protestant, evangelical churches, it's common to do like a church-wide fast, right? And so, that can be pretty challenging, right? And when we think about Lent, it's often like, fasting from a certain food group or giving up, X, Y, Z. And I think when diet culture comes in, it really takes away from the purpose and meaning of why you would do that for your religion, right? It really kind of takes away the spirituality and the sacredness, true meaning that can connect you to your values, and it really hijacks it and makes you focus on your body, or the food that you're eating in a way that's diety, and like that's really sad, and that's how we know diet culture is when it's not really about like the spiritual practice or the relationship with God. It's really more about like, how will I look? What will the result be for me?
Yeah. And I think, to your point, my parents are in town, and they are devout Catholics, and my dad grew up with a very French Catholic mother, and it's just ingrained in him. And we were talking about this, and I was talking about this live that we were doing. And my mom made such a great point. She said it should be something that brings you closer. And we were talking about how people latch on in that diet culture, and eating disorder is so sneaky, and it sneaks in and it says, well, if you give up this, then you're, closer to God. But, I was saying that's just not like, how does that really apply into a faith perspective? And instead, we were talking about giving ideas of other things that we can do in these types of religious practices of, reflection. So whether it's saying a prayer every day or meditating or doing something kind, I think there are so many concrete things, that we can do that is not with that diet culture infused in it. And I'm just wondering, like, from your perspective, let's brainstorm some ideas for folks out there of things that they can give up or do during this time of Lent that might actually help enhance and benefit their religious connection and their spirituality.
Yeah. I love that you kind of brought that in of like enhancing connection, right?
Yeah.
bringing us closer to our higher power and values and all of that. And I think, too, like, I just want to add before we jump into that, for someone who struggles with restrictive eating, it's like actually not sacrificial to like just keep restrictive eating, right? Like, it's like you're just doing what,
Yes.
what's comfortable. Like, you're doing what's easier for your neurobiology.
Yes.
Like, in terms of what we give
Sorry.
up. Like, I think that there's a lot more to that. And every person is different. Did I get blurry a little bit?
Yes. Sorry, my phone just went kind of nuts for a second. I don't know what happened. But are you still there?
Yeah.
Right? Okay. I don't know why it has a lag. This always happens to me. It's like it never fails. It's like the Zoom, the Instagram gods are like, no, not today.
Like,
So yeah, so I mean, I agree. And I think, I'm sorry if you said this, but I was also thinking too, if you're someone that struggles with restriction, to talk to your priest or pastor or whatever church leader that might look like, growing up for me, I was very close to a religion teacher. So, talk to them about it and come up with ways and brainstorm about that. I think that, with Lent, it's just with any holiday, many religious holidays are centered around food and gatherings. And, I think it's so important to kind of have those boundaries about diet talk. And so I was wondering if you could maybe help individuals out there, like, how do you set up those boundaries? How do you even bring it up to your family about, like, hey, this is what I would like to not discuss at this year's Easter table, or whatever holiday it might be? Any thoughts around boundaries? Can be so hard, but they're so important.
yeah. And I think it kind of depends on, like, level of comfort, right? Like, some boundary conversations might look different for people that you're closer with versus like acquaintances. You might not go into the full reason why, all of that stuff. Right. I think in general, setting boundaries is uncomfortable. So I think knowing that it's going to be uncomfortable, but just because it's uncomfortable doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong, right? So really kind of just focusing on, what do I need to be able to better engage, with my family, with my loved ones, with my people around me. Probably not going to engage if there's a lot of diet talk. So whether it's just as simple as changing the subject or saying, hey, I'm not really comfortable talking about this, or, laughing it off, or saying, hey, can you refrain from saying stuff like that? I just, like, it's really hard for me to hear stuff like that. Whatever it is, and I think that that's one way of just using your voice in that.
Yeah. And you're right. Like, it can be so hard. I always found it helpful, especially early in my recovery, to have like a safe person in that experience. So for me, it was my husband. But, kind of having that person that you can, like, have a code word like dolphin and, like, hit the road or go outside and take a break, whatever that kind of looks like. I mean, going off of boundaries, what are some thoughts about navigating world diet culture in the holiday season and within all of these gatherings? Like, do you have any tips in preparing for that for folks?
Yeah. I mean, I think sometimes being really clear, and grounded about why you're doing what you're doing in terms of the holidays. So if someone else is like, I'm not eating blah, blah, blah food because of, whatever, just really reminding yourself, like, I'm choosing to do this for this reason. I can do things that are different from other people. It doesn't mean, again, that it's wrong or that, I'm not doing the right thing. It's just like, I'm protecting my recovery, and having some mantras kind of prepared beforehand.
Yeah.
Idea of having that safe person, whether it's a word or just like to look at them and be like, when something,
yeah. Wink, wink.
Yeah, I think can be really, really big. And then I think, like, really being a critical consumer of what you're consuming on, like, social media. Yes. And being afraid to, like, mute or silence or unfollow things that are not helpful, because we already have to navigate the world around us, and then social media is just another added layer. And so when we can eliminate unnecessary noise, I think that that can be beneficial as well.
I mean, amen to all of that. And that's what I always tell, especially when I do a lot of work on college campuses. I always tell the college students, I tell everyone, you know, there's so few things that we can control in our recovery journeys or just even in life in general. But one thing you can control is your social media, right? We can mute, block, unfollow. We need to follow accounts that fill us up, you know, following the Alliance, following you, following, you know, things that make us diversify our feed. So we're seeing all different bodies and humans. And, you know, I think that's so important. And it's, you know, that's really what the social media is for connection with others that might not, you know, look like you or have the same, you know, religion as you. You know, somebody was just commenting at Ramadan, and we're doing another Instagram live just for that. But I think it's really important to find that connection, and especially in navigating during these hard times. And, you know, and I would also add with Lent, it's just, I mean, it's just so ingrained of diet culture. I'm from South Louisiana. So, I mean, there it's like, it's just everyone is always giving up a food or a drink or a workout and things like that. And so I would really push folks to ask yourself and challenge those long stemming beliefs of why, and does that benefit your religion, and what is the real purpose behind that. And I think if you dig deep, you might be, you know, a little surprised to see that it's just kind of like what you were born and raised around, and really challenging it to grow your faith in a different way. I think can be a really, really important thing for anyone. So I wanted to ask, you know, you identify as someone that has recovered from an eating disorder. If you had to go back, what would you tell yourself in the midst of that struggle?
Oh gosh. I think I would say, are you saying someone who's struggling and needs to be woken up to their struggle, or is someone in recovery? Myself in
Whatever
recovery.
one feels right for you. I think we have folks from all stages of recovery and eating disorder that would benefit from any words of wisdom.
Totally. Yeah. 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 I mean, I think, like, with my eating disorder, I think even with my relationship with God, like, I felt so much shame, like, so
Mm-hmm.
much shame, tears, so much shame. And so I think even just telling myself, like, hey, this isn't your fault.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have been doing the best, and you're imperfect. As everyone is, we all know that, but, like, this isn't your fault. It's gonna be okay. It's gonna take some time to get better, but healing is possible, and healing is for you. Like, and I had some people, in my life that were able to speak that to me,
Mm-hmm.
really valuable. But yeah, I think reducing the shame of, like, it's not anyone's fault.
Right. I 1,000% agree. I think that's carrying that shame is, and carrying it in silence, it just kind of grows and grows, as our bestie Brene Brown says, you know, shame metastasizes in the darkness. And I think for folks to know that it's not their fault, that you're not alone, and, you know, that oftentimes in the recovery journey, I think it has to be said that your faith might grow in a different direction you never knew possible. Whether towards it or away from it, there is no right or wrong here. And I think that's really important, because as I was entering into my recovery journey, you know, Lent and some of these more reflective types throughout the church, they weren't connecting with me in that season of my life. And that's okay. There was nothing wrong with me. I'm not a bad Catholic because of that. So I want to take away any shame for folks that are like, I don't resonate with that. Right. So, you know, we all have to show up where we are and give ourselves grace in that moment, and give ourselves permission to really dig deep and to honor whatever is coming up. So, you know, as we kind of talk about this faith and Lent, and how it, you know, weaves into not just diet culture, but our recovery, just remembering to give ourselves that space and that grace, to show up in that way. And, you know, and to know, like you said, to your point, that you're not alone, that, you know, you can log on to our support groups. We have our 5 virtual therapist-led support groups. I'm always on the Monday night evenings, and they're just a beautiful space of connection, and to know that you're not alone, and to know that recovery is possible and it's happening. That's what we love to say. And thanks to people like you that are doing the work every day. And the reason that I am strong in my recovery is because of clinicians like you, and that, you know, the Alliance also can help connect you to care, that you can go to findedhelp.com, or you can call our referral number and talk to someone that can give you and connect you to care. So this has been such a fun conversation. I'm just wondering, do you have any last pearls of wisdom or thoughts on faith and Lent and diet culture? I'm sure you have lots of thoughts, but any last words?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me on. I think when we got like muted and like whatever cut
Yeah.
out, then I didn't get to answer the question about like what else could people like give up.
Yes, please. Yes.
Circle back to that. So I think like obviously we're on social media right now, but I think some people benefit from
Yeah.
giving up social media,
Yeah.
right? Or just taking a break or reducing time. Like some people really, you know, try to enhance like what you said, practices of prayer or journaling or reading or getting outside and connecting, you know, with nature in that way, or listening to music. Like there are so many, you know, different ways that, you know, might look different than maybe what, you know, you're used to or have grown up with, but I think we can practice some flexibility, right? Which is
Yeah.
so about what recovery is about, and expanding our views and concepts of certain things I think can be really helpful.
I love that. And I think that, you know, I mean, this is, I don't know where this falls in the line of Lent, but I think Lent, you know, in this time, is supposed to be a time of reflection, a time of faith. And, you know, we always think of it, it's so connected to giving up something, to sacrificing something. And what if instead of like that, you give to something? And what if that person is you? Like, what if you give to yourself? You know, I know for me, being a really busy working mom, like that would be a sacrifice, would be to turn around and to give myself something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I want to really encourage folks that Lent doesn't always look like giving up, you know, an item, a thing. Like, you could, you know, give yourself an hour a week to do whatever feels good. You know, I mean, taking time for you is such a gift that I think is overlooked during this time. And it's one that can definitely be woven into Lent and woven into that space. So kind of challenging that status quo, I think, is just the really important takeaway for today, is that we have to dig deep. And this is the time of the year in the Christian calendar that is a time of reflection. And so I would really just challenge everyone to go deeper than the status quo of diet culture, and to dig into who they are and their connection with their faith. And so I just think that's really important, what you just said. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thanks for adding to that.
Yeah. Well, any last words now? I'm so glad you went back and answered that.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. This has been really great.
This has been wonderful. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for tuning in. And we look forward to seeing you soon. All right. Bye.
Bye.